Many thanks for still staying with us right here on KBC Channel 1. Welcome back. My name is Mike Miguel. Now we shift the conversation to include matters to do with empowering MSMEs through green energy and fintech. And we're going to focus on the Boda sector, because when you look at the Boda sector, it's a big sector, but one of the largest informal industries in the country. We're talking about a sector with more than 2.5 million riders, serving around 5 million people. That brings a lot of potential, yes, when you look at it from a financial perspective. But how can they be moved from survival to structured growth? That is how we are going to structure that conversation. And Vincent Sila is the CEO of Datalock and joins me for this conversation. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much, man.
How are you doing this morning?
Good, thank you so much.
Yes. When you look at the Boda sector,
correct,
it's one of the biggest informal industries we have within the country.
That's correct.
From your perspective, how do we move them from informal survival to structured business growth?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question, because you have to understand that these guys control what 660 billion revenue.
Yes.
Yet they barely make anything of that. This money goes to other players like taxi hailing, petroleum,
yes,
insurance companies, spare parts. Yet at the end of the day, they're the ones who wake up in the morning, the ones who have to deal with the cold, the rain, the heat, the police, the kanjos and everything. So they're carrying the weight of everybody else. Yet at the end of the day, they don't make none of that money goes to them.
Yeah.
So question is then, how do we then ensure that they are included in the 660 billion pie?
Yeah.
And because of their disjointed, because these players rely on the fact that they're disjointed.
Yeah.
So that way, that money never gets to the Boda guys. So the only way then to do that is through the Sacco model. Now, when they're Sacco, then they're able now to start saving. They're able now to be included, where now they can be able to be trusted. And now with trust brings opportunities. And then with the Sacco model now brings discipline.
Yes.
And now with discipline, now you can be able to regulate the sector easily, because now they're accounted for. Now you become accountable not to yourself, but to the Sacco. And you see, even if you look at the matatu industry, it works with the Sacco model, because why? Those guys fear the Saccos more than the police.
Yes.
So we just bring the same thing to the Boda sector, where now I'm afraid of, okay, not necessarily afraid, but I am accountable to the Sacco. And then that brings order. And then with that now brings opportunity, which is now we can unlock that 660 billion, because now they're able now to tap into those resources.
Yes, there's a lot of potential within that sector.
Absolutely, yes.
But then again, how do you convince them that this is actually an empowerment,
right,
rather than a burden?
Right. You mean the Bodas themselves?
Yes.
Yeah. See, I mean, at the reason why there's been this cat and mouse with the governments, where now they are making the Bodas join Saccos, they're missing a key piece of information. So whereas the government has good intentions by saying you guys can't be a Boda rider unless you join a Sacco, they're not telling the riders why the Sacco model is important. Why should you be in a Sacco? So basically, these guys are only joining the Saccos to get the reflector jacket so that they're not harassed by the kanjo or the police. But the Sacco, they're not saving. The Sacco can only survive if members are saving. That's how actually even banks survive. Without savings, then there's no Sacco. So in as much as government is pushing these guys to join Saccos, if they don't ensure that the Saccos are sustainable, that they're surviving, then there's no Sacco, which means there's no data that they're going to collect. So for us, we want to ensure that the incentives for these boys to join the Saccos and to educate them. There's capacity building, where there's leadership. So we have partners who come in and train them on what's a good leader. How do you ensure that money is not embezzled? Because that's the problem. You know, when you force these guys to enter a Sacco, when you're not asking him, why do you hate the Sacco so much? Then if you listen to them, they'll tell you, our leaders used to steal our money. I used to be in a Sacco, by the way, and then this guy ran away with our money. So that's why I don't want to be in a Sacco. So when you listen to them, then you see, then what are the solutions then? How do we then ensure that you can trust the Sacco model? And the only way is to digitize these Saccos, to ensure that these guys have complete transparency and they can see the money flow, how the Sacco is spending their money, they're also included in that, so that they don't wake up in the morning and the guy has closed the account and has run away with their money. So digitization is the only way we are saying this. ensure that these guys are incentivized and they're able to now to get other revenue streams other than just riding. We've discovered that there's so much money out there that the Boda sector can tap if they're in Saccos. Individually, you stand alone, but together as a brotherhood, then you become more marketable. Actually,
when you speak of alternative revenue sources for Boda riders, there's the aspect of they wear reflectors.
Right.
Do you think they really understand that that is a marketing opportunity, a business, a money-making opportunity, really?
No, actually, Mike, that's a very good point. You can see that I think the outdoor advertising is worth close to 60 billion annually. And if you look at the trucks or the buses in town or any other outdoor advertising, those guys pay their rates. But when you look at the Boda, they're given these jackets with different brands, and the guy just swears. And if you compare to a newspaper ad, which is like a full-page ad, it's about 800,000 shillings. But that newspaper will be meat wrap or fish wrap by midday, which means you've basically just lost your money. But can you imagine if now we're able to harness that, work with the counties, and anybody that wanted to advertise now on Boda is no longer free. So you pay your fair share, right? I mean, why should a politician or a brand put their face or their brand at the back of the jacket? And this guy's riding maybe from Nairobi to Thika. How many eyeballs are those compared to a newspaper? So we want to say that this is an opportunity that the Boda sector should. And now you can only get that if you're in a Sacco, right? I mean, and the Sacco model is actually best to cure many of the issues that they are facing, meaning accident rates. Why? Because these guys are entering the sector without any sort of training.
Yes.
And if you ask a guy why, he'll tell you he doesn't have money for NTSA or for this or the driving school. But guess what? If you're in a Sacco, you're able to access all those things. Why? Because the Sacco, you can even access mdogo, you know, so you don't have to come up with the 5,000 right now, but the Sacco can be able to hold your hand until you're able to get your license. Helmets and elbow pads and knee pads, again, Bodas don't seem to understand that when you're riding on a motorcycle, you're not a car. You see, a car, at least if you're in an accident, you'll be able to be protected by the car. But as a Boda, you are the car. So whenever you get on that bike, the helmet, the elbow pads, and the knee pads become very critical. But they don't have them. Why? Because they're too expensive. But through the Sacco model now, it becomes affordable. You see, so safety is there also with the trainings, with the driving school. So we want these guys to be NTSA compliant. And when you're NTSA compliant, it means then you become more attractive, more marketable. You become more trustworthy. Do you know that 60% of passengers are women? Or the Boda riders?
On the Boda riders.
Yes. So, but if a woman looks at a Boda and sees threats, so that reduces the income, right? Because now I don't want to ride with this guy. I feel, but imagine if they're able to go through the awareness of safety, making public transport safe for women and children. That means more access. So a woman who's looking for a rider to take their kid to school feels comfortable. We say, hey, Mike, I know this guy. He's a good rider. He behaves well, so you can take my kids.
That what you're saying is true, because right now how the Boda sector operates, it's more on trust, because we have people who trust Bodas to take their kids to school. We have Bodas who are trusted to go do shopping for people. It also enhances, when you look at the Sacco aspect, would you say it enhances traceability of Bodas within the industry?
Yes, actually, and that brings the key points and why they're always a key part of the society when it comes to security. They can really play a key role in terms of helping law enforcement, not only just in surveillance, but also information. Remember, they're everywhere. So these guys are fast at the scene of crime. They're fast at the scene of an accident. So even go further by saying that they can be trained to be fast responders. But you see, you can't train an individual Boda. You have to come through a Sacco model, where now if it's, let's say, St. John's or Red Cross. Because you imagine in an accident, who is there first? Before an ambulance even gets there, it's the Boda guys. But now if you upskill them with the skills of stabilizing an injury, you have a better chance of survival, Mike. You'd rather have a guy who can stabilize your bleeding, right? As opposed to waiting for an ambulance where you can bleed out and die. So if a guy has skills and is arrived there fast, and is able to stabilize you, so it makes this guy a productive member of society. And that's what you want. You want this behavior thing to change where people look at Boda Bodas as a threat. You, when you see a Boda Boda, you immediately you just cringe. You think these guys are going to burn my car.
Yes.
They're going to do all sorts of bad things. But these are a few guys who are spoiling the industry. So being in a Sacco and being able to have digital ID, where I can be able to say, I'm a member of this Sacco.
Yes.
I'm not a gangster. I'm not a thief. Then that makes these guys, I think it will open up more space for them. And then this thing of the media always saying, like, if there's a shootout somewhere, like the other day the lawyer was shot in Karen, but the media says about the Boda guy shot. Like, you see, that's wrong. Because it's just a guy on a motorbike. It's not a Boda Boda. You get, but since they are such a long-hanging fruit, they're easy to target. And people say, these Boda Boda guys, we should ban them.
Yes.
Why ban them? But you clearly said earlier, they play a critical role in our lives. I mean, they provide transport, logistics, goods and services are being moved every day.
Yeah.
There are brothers, there are nephews,
Yes.
there are cousins, there are fathers. And so we don't look at them as a problem like everybody else. We look at them as partners. Partners towards economic empowerment. Yeah.
And also matters to do with financial inclusion.
Actually, yes.
When you talk about that, when you look at fintech generally and the Boda sector, how do you say it's helping them access to finance, because they have probably historically been excluded from credit?
Yeah. Actually, you see, and that's the thing, actually, and good question, because if you talk to banks, they don't want to touch these guys.
Yeah.
Because they see them as high risk. And then, so they're forced to go to other microlenders. Their rates are crazy, 40%, 50%. And then that makes the default rates high. Because on face value, if you take the bike and you say, I can be able to pay for it. But then reality hits you 6 months later, you cannot keep up with the payments. So these guys come and take the bikes. So then they destroy your life now. They disrupt your way of life.
Yes.
And that's what we don't want that. So being in fintech and then having that Sacco now model allows you now to be able to manage your savings. Allows you to be in a Sacco where you can do your contributions, you can do your welfare, you can do your daily collections and savings. And you don't need to call the chairman, keep asking him, chairman, how much is my saving? How much is my welfare? Everything is in our wallet. And then so that now makes easy for you to, the fintech will connect to the bank, and the bank can see your history and savings in the Sacco. So they trust you now, and they're saying now you're not at risk anymore. And because now you're in a Sacco, should I be sick or unable to pay my daily payments, guess what, Mike? The Sacco comes in and holds your hand until I get better. You see, so now the default fear is no longer there, because somebody else is going to pick up that tab and pay for the asset. So I think the fintechs can really come in and ensure that these guys are included now within the larger scope of the financial institutions.
But then again, do you have an example of such a fintech that would help Boda achieve that?
Yeah. I mean, as we speak right now, so we launched Kinga. Kinga is a fintech that is it's a digital tool that actually connects Saccos to banks, to OEMs who are EV manufacturers, and also to other government services and other service providers, like micro health, for instance. And that's a big issue that Bodas face right now. Health is a key issue. On top of SHA, how else can they access health? And so we have partners that can come on the platform on Kinga, and they become partners. So then they become exposed now to these Saccos.
Yes.
And for that, we reduce these guys' customer acquisition costs. We reduce the marketing costs. Because imagine you're coming at one platform and you're finding all these Saccos there ready to take your product. So we're making it easy, actually, for these guys, even for EV manufacturers, governments, if they want to increase the share uptake within the informal sectors. How do they do that? You see, so we have a structured way on how now the fintechs, like Kinga now, has seen the gap where there's fragmentation and disjointment. We're bringing everything under one platform. So now the Boda doesn't have to go round looking for these services. And then OEMs do not have to advertise everywhere looking for these Boda riders. So on one platform, you're able to get these guys all at once.
Speaking of electric mobility, how do you think, are we looking at the emergence of a new green SME system, because the Boda falls within that,
Yeah.
around mobility. Because when you talk about EV, you're talking matters to do with environmental sustainability and
the ESG,
green transition.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so actually, we want to support the government or the world's agenda of the net zero emission by, I think, 2050. That's what they say. So, and to achieve that,
Yes.
you have to transition the fuel bikes, which they call them ICE, internal combustion engines, from fuel now to electric. And you can see now the war in Iran has really disrupted the oil markets
Yes.
and the distribution of fuel.
Yes.
And people are lining up. So the cost of those are high. And not just that, the cost of maintaining ICE bike or fuel bike is much higher, because, you know, these guys have to service it every 2 weeks. But with an EV,
Yes.
you can do it like once in 6 months. And the only thing you're servicing is maybe tightening the chain. It has no moving parts. So there's nothing, no friction, nowhere.
Yes.
So that's the advantage. So the cost of ownership now becomes lower if you have an EV. So these are the education that we want to tell the Boda riders, that actually within the city, if you're going to be in the urban areas, having an EV bike is an advantage. Yes, because the operational cost and the fuel cost remain very minimal, and
Yes.
you end up having more money in your pocket at the end of the day. And then, of course, now there's the environmental impact that you mentioned. We're talking
Yes.
about not just environment, but noise. You can imagine if you're in town somewhere having coffee or having a meeting and you just hear that muffler.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, it's very annoying. So we want to make sure that Nairobi maintains its green city status, where now not just noise, but also air pollution is taken care of by incentivizing EVs.
Yes.
So that, because they can come to the city silent and clean and get out without anybody even knowing that they were there,
Yeah.
if compared them to the ICE. And then there's a safety issue.
Yeah.
The ICE bikes, they're easily stolen. Why? Because they rely on this physical GPS that you can put under the seat, and everybody knows where they are. So if you're going to steal a bike and just lift the seat, you get the tracker, remove it, and that's why they used to be stolen. That's why it was a danger, even and a risk for banks to loan these guys.
Yeah.
But now with the EV, guess what? They're using IoT, which is in the battery. So they're actually tracking the battery. And the funny thing is, even if you steal the bike, where are you going to swap the battery? Because if you take it to a swap station, that ID for the battery is unique. And so they'll just flag it
Yes.
and tell you, Mike, Ebu, hold on here. And then they call the cops. And so you become safe. You can actually leave your bike there for 2 years. And no one's going to mess with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there are those aspects where we want to encourage Boda riders to think about it for your safety and for the environment. And
Yeah.
also, they can even cash in on the, what do you call those, carbon credits.
Yes.
Later. You see, so because you can say, Mike, over the years you saved X amount of CO2. So how much is this worth? So there are many reasons why they should come. And also, lastly, within the Sacco model, we can also encourage the Boda Saccos to grow trees, not just plant, because plant you just plant and leave, but when you grow, you actually nurture the tree.
Yes.
So you can imagine if a group of 300 guys have been given a plot somewhere and they're nurturing those trees. Again, that can count towards their carbon credits, which
Yeah.
they can claim as a Sacco.
Yes.
So there are many things that people have not opened up their eyes what the power of the Boda Sacco is. They're not bad, they're not a menace, but if somebody is clever enough and see that opportunity here, where if we just sit down and listen to their problems, then we come up with solutions that can.
And when you look
benefit.
at it from that perspective, can Saccos become the catalyst through which the green energy is scaled within the Boda sector?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it, Mike. Where else would you start? If you are dealing with an individual, do you know how hard it is to even have accountability? How do you even know this guy is going to do anything that you discussed or agreed on? So, and then when you deal with the individual, you have to go one by one. How long will that take you? But you see now the Sacco model presents you an opportunity where you can get them all en masse. You say it's the EV manufacturers, and they put their EV bikes on the platform. And now these guys have access to that. And the banks have said, you know what, since you're no longer a risk, we can lend you guys the money. And remember, the banks are not lending to the individual, they're actually lending to the Sacco.
Yes.
Then the Sacco is the ones that saying that Mike is a good guy, he has a good credit score,
Yes.
so he's not at risk. So you see there are those levels of removing the risks. And at the end of the day, the Sacco models becomes the de facto tool on how can we push this green agenda. It's actually, to be honest, it's the only way, because there are so many within a Sacco. So if you're going to go sell the bikes or do a transition,
Yeah.
it's easy for them to do it within a group as opposed to do it as an individual.
Yes, which now brings out a very important aspect. For a Boda in Nairobi, Busia, Kirinyaga,
Yeah.
Embu, wherever, what is the cost of remaining outside a Sacco today, financially and professionally?
Oh, well, okay. See, the good thing about this is within the urban setting, it's already clear. So now when you have to go out in the rural area, now it becomes now critical for these guys to be. In fact, that's when you really need a Sacco because the opportunities are few and far between. No one is likely to even notice you. But then when you're in a Sacco, now it becomes very, very paramount.
Yes.
For your survival.
Yeah.
Because now if there was an NGO that was coming to do a program in Muranga
Yes.
or Nyeri, but you are isolated, how will you be part of that program? If there's a government incentive program of empowerment, so instead of government doing this empowerment through like the Nyota thing that they did or the Hustler thing where money can easily be lost and not even traced and accounted for, or even giving some youth 50,000 where instead of doing a business, he goes and does other things. But imagine if this was channeled to the Sacco model. Are you seeing now the power of the Sacco now? Because now in Muranga, now if he has joined the Sacco, that money now can be channeled through the Sacco since he's a member of the Sacco. And now he can take that money and maybe buy himself safety gear, or he can invest in something else, or he can do whatever it is that you want. But the thing is, that money will be paid. Unlike in the outside the Sacco, government is losing this money because it will never come back. But within the Sacco model, it can come back and they'll be able now to repump that money back into this other group. So yes, those guys in the rural areas can really, really benefit by joining Saccos because now it will ensure that they have access to the financial institutions, micro health, which is very, very important, the NGOs that I've just mentioned, and government services, and also allow them now to be able to get the driver's license that they need and the PSV insurance. Remember, Mike, a lot of these guys are actually riding without PSV insurance.
Yes.
And ask yourself, why do these guys burn cars when in an accident? And the guy will tell you, come buy any buyer, that kind of language. So what we're saying is, if you're in a Sacco, you can also get these dash cams. There's tiny cameras that on the front and the back of the bike. So that now there's evidence. Because the main issue is, police, when they come, they believe the drivers. They don't believe us. And then the insurance takes time to pay us. But if you have the evidence now, that becomes easy. The police can write up the report, and then the insurance company can just view the accident, and then you get your premiums. You see, so being in a Sacco allows you to have access to all these things.
I think there's a lot of capacity building that needs to happen. Right. And where do you think the county governments should come in?
Good question, actually, yeah. So the county governments right now, I can speak for Nairobi, they have a county system that they're registering riders for enforcement purposes, which is a good system, because now that is linked to the chiefs, to NTSA, and so movement and identification of these riders becomes easy. And then, of course, they have said that each zone, like we say, each constituency, I think, will have a different color code of the whatever. So you can easily identify that this guy is from, let's say, Embakasi, this guy is from Westlands, this guy is from Langata. So they've done that, which is good now. But you see, that's the enforcement part.
Yes.
But now, Kinga is about empowerment, right? And the county relies on the Saccos. But now if the Saccos don't exist because they're not saving, then where did the county get their data from, right? So they need the Saccos to be thriving. Yeah. So that's why Kinga comes in. We ensure that these Saccos are thriving so that the county can get this data, right? And now when we work with the county, in terms of, like you said, the advertising, we're working on these wristbands, by the way, which have medical data. You can have it in traditional Maasai or whatever, just have a tag inside. But let's say you're injured and you've been hit in the head and you don't remember, you can't talk, you're unconscious. So how do they notify your next of kin? You've been in hospital for 6 months. We have cases where guys have been in hospital even for a whole year. The guy cannot remember anything.
They lost
memory. Yes. This happens literally every day. So working with the county governments, the hospitals, they just simply scan, tap, and they get all your details, your age, your blood group, your allergies, and your next of kin information. So at least they call somebody and say, hey, your guy is here. And that's how we're seeing how we can work with government and other NGOs in terms of safety and traceability, so that these guys are able to be traced, and then next of kin are not dying inside, worried about, I don't know where my loved one is. Yeah.
When you look at the Boda sector, and let's say they take up the aspect of forming Saccos, and even to access finance, how do you see it changing in the next 5 to 10 years within the country?
Well, you see, as long as there's a Sacco, and they lenders look at one thing, they look at your traction. So even me, you know, when you go to our banks and ask for a loan, they pretty just much look at how much transactions we are doing.
Yes.
And that will allow the bank to say, hey, you know, Mike or Vince, you know, we can trust you with a loan, or we don't trust you with a loan.
Yes.
So right now they don't have that. So we want to build this capacity, Mike. So you said in the next 5 years, how this can be done is they join Saccos, they start saving on a daily, they start borrowing and repaying, build your capacity, get the trainings for your leaders and how to grow Saccos, investments, so that when this money comes in from other sources, let's say the Nyota funds I was talking about, if now a Sacco is given 1 million shillings, Mike, what do they do with it? And they don't know how, they don't have any trainings, they start infighting. You know how they are. Everybody wants, chair, ata yangu, chair. They don't think about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
How do we get this money and turn it into 2 million, into 3 million, into 4 million? And I'll even surprise you. Imagine if only 5,000 borders, just 5,000, which is just you mentioned earlier 2.63 million, right?
Yes, yes.
Now I just want to drop it down to just 5,000. 5,000 saving 50K a day. Do you know how much that comes to? Almost 100 million a year. In under a year, you got 100 million.
Yeah.
And we know that banks can lend you up to 10 times what you have. So we're talking about $1 billion, Mike. So these are things that borders need to understand. Instead of infighting and allowing politicians to take over or allowing other groups to take over, focus on your own growth. Because at the end of the day, Mike, you're alone, you and your family. At the end of the day, you have to go answer to your wife, to your children, to your parents. So if you're here chasing other people's dreams, at the end of the day, you wake up with nothing.
Yeah.
So if only 5,000, I just said 5,000 can get up to 100 million, and that can be $1 billion. How much investments do you think that can bring in?
A lot.
Exactly. And so we need to start talking about this. The truth must be told. People must start telling the truth to the Boda riders. You guys are being used left, right, and center by everybody. You can use it because you have allowed it. Not you, I mean the Boda guys have allowed it because of you're easily divided, you're low-hanging fruit. For instance, I'll give you a very good example. I think in 2022, there's a lady who was knocked in Westlands, right? And then the government did a crackdown on every border in the country. Are you seeing? So look at the pattern. An accident happens in Westlands. A guy in Nyamira who has never been to Westlands, doesn't even know where Westlands is.
Pays the price.
Pays the price. So they attacked as a group. One guy makes a mistake, the rest of the group suffers. And I can tell you, you can see like a teacher who abuses a child in school. Does the government crack down on all schools? No. If a pastor abuses a child, does the government crack down on all churches? No. So here we're saying, guys, don't victimize the border because of one guy.
Yeah.
Don't treat them as a group.
Yeah.
Treat that guy who has committed that crime as him. Don't go and say, border sector, now we need to ban these guys. That's wrong. And
under the Saccos, it will be easier to deal with an individual as opposed to a group. Thank you so much, Vincent, for coming and talking about this aspect. I hope the border sector have learned a thing or three from this.
Yes, even 100. Yes. Because at the end of the day, it's all about money, but more than money is about dignity and empowerment. So we want them to be able to have dignity and respect. But Mike, it comes both ways. Yes. The borders must learn to respect the people, and the people must learn how to respect the border sector. So it's not free for all. Everybody must learn to respect each other's space, and together now we can unlock this 660 billion revenue that we're talking about.
Indeed. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Vincent Silla, who is the CEO of Datalock, speaking to us about matters of empowering MSMEs through green energy and fintech. This is where this conversation ends. Up next is a conversation I had with Elizabeth Gathu on the women at the forefront. That segment is up next. My name is Mike Megwe. Thank you for watching.